Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and I'm currently sitting here without power. We are in the middle of a hurricane. And because I have nothing else to do, I am reading and doing a little filming. So I just wrapped up my thoughts on Blood Rights, the 6th book in the Dresden Files series, and I figured let's jump right into Deadbeat. I'm reading this for Summerween, so we're just gonna get on into it. If you're new here, I have been doing a series where I reread all of the Dresden Files before August 29th, which is the start of Dragon Con. And we are, as I mentioned, on book 7, which is Deadbeat. And how these videos go is I'm going to read at the back of the book. I'm going to try to tell you if I remember anything from this book, and then we're going to get started reading. I usually check in somewhere between the 30 to 50% mark and then wrap it up. The vlog will also contain spoilers, so if you've not read this book and you care to, I would suggest coming back around when you've read them. You can always check out the playlist if you've read some of the other Dresden File books and want to see my thoughts on those. But outside of that, let's go ahead and read the synopsis, shall we? Paranormal investigations are Harry Dresden's business, and Chicago is his beat as he tries to bring law and order to a world of wizards and monsters that exist alongside everyday life. And though most inhabitants of the Windy City don't believe in magic, the Special Investigations Department of Chicago PD knows better. Karen Murphy is the head of SI and Harry's good friend. So when a killer vampire threatens to destroy Murphy's reputation unless Harry does her bidding, he has no choice. The vampire wants the word of Kemmler, whatever that is, and all the power that comes with it. Now, Harry is in a race against time and 6 merciless necromancers to find the word before Chicago experiences a Halloween night to wake the dead. Deadbeat. I don't remember anything from this book. Just considering what happened in Blood Rights, I'm going to assume the deadly vampire that he's referring to is Mavra because it was hinted by Kincaid that Mavra probably did not die in their little raid that they did in like the B plot, like the subplot of Blood Rights. So I'm gonna assume Mavra is the person who is basically blackmailing Harry Dresden. And I'm gonna assume that Murphy is in fact dating Kincaid in this book in some fashion. And Harry's gonna be slightly jealous, just like he was in Blood Rights. But that's pretty much all I can tell you, because I don't really remember this story. It doesn't stick out to me, but I'm excited to have more Karen, hopefully. But yeah, so I'm gonna get started reading this soon. I'll check back in with you when I've gotten a little further, and hopefully I don't lose any pages. I really need to get some glue here to fix this, because this is a problem. This is a bit of a problem. Old books, what can I say? These books have been traveling around with me for over 10 years, so sometimes they just get a little rough and tumble. But yeah. So let's get this show on the road, shall we? Yes, we shall. So I'm back. Very early. Just because I wanted to comment on the first chapter of Deadbeat. Because I think Butcher did a really fun thing here with the juxtaposition of how Blood Rights ends and where we pick up a year later in Deadbeat. And that's basically, so at the end of Blood Rights, Thomas, Harry's now known to be half-brother, ends up living with Harry after he gets kicked out of the White Court. And he's basically talking about how nice it feels to suddenly go from being alone all the time to having his brother and Mouse and having like a very full apartment. And he's sure that he's not gonna feel the same way later, but he's pretty happy about it in the moment. Fast forward to the start of Deadbeat, and we have Harry talking about the story of Cain and Abel and basically saying how he understands how Cain feels because living with Thomas has been a bit of a nightmare. He's a mess, he can't keep a job, he's having a really hard time adjusting to life in the mortal world, and it's causing Harry a lot of grief. So we first see that open up in Deadbeat, and I thought it was just a really fun way to play off how the story ended in Blood Rights and show the difference that a year made. But then also we do have Harry finding out that Murphy has gone on a couple dates with Kincaid and is actually going to Hawaii with him for vacation. And of course, Harry is jealous. Murphy is giving him the opening to say something, and he doesn't. Because Butcher is playing with us. Constantly playing with us about Murphy and Harry. Anyway, I just want to check in on that because I thought that was very fun. And then, of course, Mavra comes right out with her blackmail. So we are already jumping into the fire here. I don't remember what the B plot's going to be on this story. Maybe something continuing to do with Thomas. But yeah, starting off with a bang. Starting off with some fun. Okay, I'm going to get back to reading now. Okay, so it is Wednesday, July 10th, and as we were talking about Debbie, I said I would check in about 50% of the way, or about 40% of the way in, and I thought I would give a quick check-in. This book is really sad, y'all. Debbie has been sad. Sad, a little creepy, but overall sad. Like, I feel like Dresden is just a sad, sad boy. Sad, sad boy. First off, as I read the first chapter, we see Murphy is going to go to Hawaii with Kincaid, and is basically like, hey man, if you wanted this to happen right now before I go on a date, a long vacation with a somewhat demon man, now would be a good time to say something. But does he? No. No, he doesn't. On top of that, he's getting just his ass handed to him, humbled. But we are getting more Butters, which is fun. I grabbed some lines that I thought I would read. Like I said, Butters takes a bit more of a center stage here as a side character in Deadbeat, which we all know by this point I'm excited about because I've been waiting for Butters to enter stage left for a while. They are attacked by some necromancers, and Harry realizes that there's a book that this baddie Gravane was using, and he says he was reading a copy of a book called Die Lieder Errol King. Sorry for the pronunciation. I want to know why. Butters stared at me for a second and then said, in all of that, with threats and guns and zombies and everything, you noticed the title of the book he was holding? And Harry responds, yeah, damn, I'm good. I don't know why that made me chuckle a lot. And then after that baddie, so we've got like multiple baddies just intermixing. We don't know who the baddie is of the baddies. We just know there's multiple. And so the next one we meet is Cowl, and Harry and him are going at it, and Harry says, which I think this is like the epitome of who Harry as a character is, and he says, what rose up in me then wasn't outrage or terror, it wasn't righteous wrath, it wasn't confidence or surety or determination to protect a loved one, it was 100% pure, contrary stubbornness. Chicago was my town. I didn't care who this joker was. He wasn't going to come gliding down the streets of my town and push in my teeth for my milk money. I feel like that is the most Dresden-esque sitch ever. And then, of course, we still have this whole situation going on with Thomas and Harry trying to connect with him. And Thomas basically tells Harry that if he wins a race, he will explain to Harry kind of what he has been feeling. His response to that at first is, I blinked. What kind of kindergarten crap is that? His gray eyes flashed with anger. You want to know what it's like? Beat me down to the beach. Of all the ridiculous, immature nonsense, I said. Then I hooked a foot behind Thomas's calf, shoved him down to the sand, and took off down the beach at a dead sprint. There's almost a primal joy in the sheer motion and power of running a race. Children run everywhere for a reason. It's fun. Grown-ups can forget that sometimes. I stretched out my legs, still loose from the longer jog, and even though I was running across sand, the thrill of each stride filled my thoughts. I thought it was so cute. I really loved this scene with Harry and Thomas. I think what Butcher does with the two of them, building up the relationship, having Harry be frustrated with him, but still want to build this relationship with him and still love him, and Thomas trying as well, and just them being each other's confidants is really sweet. And then of course Thomas actually explains to Harry what he's been feeling, and basically he says, I took my first gulp and the water felt and tasted like it had come from God's own water cooler. It took the harshest edge off the burning thirst, but I needed more to ease the discomfort completely. Before I could swallow again, Thomas batted the water bottle out of my hand. It arced through the air and landed on the sand, spilling uselessly onto the beach. I spun on Thomas, staring at him in surprised anger. He met my gaze with weary gray eyes and said, It's like that. I stared at him. It's exactly like that. His expression didn't change as he went around and got into the SUV on the passenger side. It was great. It was good. Like, what a well-planned scene. Like, kudos to Butcher on that scene. I really enjoyed that. Having a good time. Like I said, I'm liking this more than Blood Rates. I feel like the tension, the plot is plotting more than it did in Blood Rates. I'm feeling teased about Dresden and Murphy per usual, especially because I know nothing's gonna come out of this meandering chats about how he should pursue her and how he's not. And yeah, so that's where we're at. I guess I'm gonna try to read, but I thought I'd check in. Howdy! So, funny enough, I completed Deadbeat last week. I completed it on Thursday, July 10th, Thursday, July 11th, just in time for the end of Summerween. If you're interested in checking out my Summerween vlogs, I'll put them all in the description box below, along with all the various ones that I've put for these other Dresden File vlogs. But yes, I finished this and I had started doing the edits to this vlog and realized that I never gave you my wrap up and complete thoughts on Deadbeat. So let's get into it. First, I still stand by my statements that I think the arc of Butters in Deadbeat was fantastic. It was such a good foil to who Harry is and his confidence in people like Butters who seem like unlikely heroes, but his belief that the little guys can step up to the plate and do something to make the world a better place is really seen here with Butters' arc. Like, we see Butters going through this comprehension, going through kind of some of the stages of grief and understanding that the world isn't quite what he thought it was, and looking out for himself, which makes sense. The little polka dude doesn't have, you know, the skills to deal with much of what's going on with, particularly what I would say is some of the stronger villains that we've seen in the previous books. I mean, yes, we've had the Fae courts, but there were like a lot of people in play here who knew what Harry was doing and had a really good ability to assess that, and because they were wizards like Harry, they were coming in pretty prepared, which I think is somewhat different from some of the other big bads or, you know, the main villain that we've seen in other books, because either they're a big bad who's got a lot of power, and because of that they're not planning quite the same way that a wizard plans, and or they are a practitioner of the arts who isn't so formally trained as these 6 necromancers. So in some ways I felt like they were far more methodical than some of the other villains that we've seen in these books thus far. I feel like even with Bianca's plan, her hubris got in the way, where I feel like these guys, there was, I think, hubris when it came to all of them, but because they're wizards, they have to be more thorough. Like, these guys have evaded the White Council for a long time, so they're all very smart, which I feel like being conniving and smart is different than just having a ton of power, which I feel like we've seen a lot of people are. And usually the bad guy that Harry's trying to take down necessarily isn't the strongest person in the story. The strongest people are like on the edges, but it's not necessarily the strongest person in the story. It was just a little different. I also fucking loved the dinosaur. I love how Butcher puts things into his books with so much purpose. Like, I don't feel like much of what you find in the Dresden Files is ever like superfluous. It's always got a reason to be there. There's always going to be a throwback to something that came up. Like, we talked about the museums. We've talked about that dinosaur multiple times in this book, and there's a payoff for it. And I really think that is something I really appreciate of what Butcher does with his stories, is he wants to make sure if the reader's spending their time reading about something, that it contributes something to the story, that it's gonna come back for some reason. And I feel like he does that in all of his books. He sometimes stretches it out to where it comes back later, but a lot of times the payoff is directly in the same book, and I think that gives the reader that sense of accomplishment and makes them feel like there was a purpose to me reading this little detail. Because sometimes that happens, and some people love extra details. We love some world building, but sometimes it can be a little much. But I do really enjoy Butter's development in here. He doesn't have martial arts training. He doesn't have this hero complex that a lot of the other characters have. He doesn't have the brute strength. He has his intelligence. And I feel like that comes into play at the end on the T-Rex, where he's drawing the circle. Like, he drew the circle on himself. Like, I thought that was such a great moment to show, like, yes, he overcame his fear, he got on there, and he learned from what Harry taught him and was able to do something that simple that helped keep the T-Rex going. It was awesome. The whole Lysel storyline is interesting. I'm already reading and Proving Guilty, so it's still going on. I don't remember, his dad pops up in his dreams twice. So we get the first time that it happens where he's at like the campfire, and we get the idea that his dad is still around, but then we get like the second iteration of it at the end where he is worried about using Lysel even for the amount that he did after talking to subconscious Harry about it, and him saying, you have to choose if this is going to be your downward spiral or not. And I think that's such an interesting concept, because it brings up that age-old questions, does the ends justify the means? Because we do have a lot of characters who have gone down that dark path. But I think Butcher is bringing up an interesting idea that if you buy into that every single time there's a choice, then yes, the inevitable is going to be that you are going to go down that dark path, and forget that every instance is a choice. And I think that is something interesting to explore in these books, where we do have more morally gray characters and we have a lot of monsters and beasties, that yes, every opportunity, every big choice that you come to, you get the opportunity to make a different choice than you did the last time. It's kind of like that idea of working out or like making a new habit. If you fucked up today with something, that doesn't mean you just say, fuck it, I'm going to continue down this path because I fucked up today. And it just means that it's all going to go to shit. You fucked up today. You made a choice today, but that choice today doesn't have to be your defining choice. And I think we do that a lot. Like, I think it's kind of, you know, a part of maturing is that you realize that the world isn't so black and white. And sometimes, yeah, you make a choice and it was the wrong choice. Or maybe it wasn't the choice you really wanted to make, but it was possibly the choice you had to make at the time. It doesn't have to define you unless you let it define you. That was really my big takeaway after reading Deadbeat. I enjoyed the Halloween-y necromancer vibe that we had going on. It actually worked very well since I was participating in Summerween while I was reading this, so we had some of those spooky vibes to go along with Summerween. I really enjoyed Deadbeat. I gave it a 4.5. I think I only gave it a 4.5 because it's probably my favorite outside of Summer Night. Outside of the 7 I've currently read, this one is on par with Summer Night. I think a lot of what we were talking about and the storyline was interesting, and some of the world building that we were doing was fun. I'm not gonna say it was a 5. I don't know if I would make it 5-star. I don't know. I think it'll just hit me when I'm like, yes, this is like awesome. 5 stars. But maybe I'm grading on a curve too, because I have read these books before. I don't know. But that's what we're gonna stick with. So if you took similar takeaways from Deadbeat, or if you like the spooky vibes or whatever, or you just think, you know, a zombie T-Rex was a hell of a lot of fun like I did, let me know down below in the comments. Like I said, I've already jumped into Proven Guilty, so I'm excited to keep going with this adventure. I've already ordered Turncoat because I realized that was one of the only books I was missing, and that one will be coming up soon. But I'm gonna wrap this up here because I've been rambling. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to stick around for more bookish and nerdish content, feel free to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe. I upload every Sunday and really almost every Wednesday now. And until the next one, I hope you read a good book, I hope you find some joy, and most importantly, I hope you do something to make the world a better place, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!